Welcome to Citizen Impact, a project of the Miami Valley Full Employment Council. I'm the host, Logan Martinez. This is our 30th season here at DATV, and we really appreciate people tuning in. We have an interesting show tonight. We're going to cover a number of issues, including strike at Children's Services. They had a half-a-day strike back a couple weeks ago, and then a judge ordered them back to work at noon that day. And it was now the union is challenging that ruling, saying that was illegal of the judge, that the judge didn't have the authority to order them back to work. But they're working and they're in negotiations right now, and we're hoping there'll be a quick settlement here. These people are working for us, the citizens of Montgomery County, and they have a very hard job in many ways. There's been a lot going on in the Dayton area. It seems like it's one tragedy, one event right after the other, from water lines breaking to criminal elements stealing police cars and killing people in front of the library, unfortunately. Tornadoes and shootings seems like happen. It's become a regular part of our program around here, and the Full Employment Council and the community is joining together to do something about it. And we encourage everybody to get involved, to become an active citizen. So we're going to show some video of the first day of the strike, and then we'll talk a little about it, and we have some testimony that was given at the County Commission. So if we could show the video of the first day of the Children's Services strike.
I also wish that they valued us. They don't know what kind of homes we go into. We go into homes where there are people with untreated mental health issues. We go into homes where the people are violent. And all we want to do is help families. That's what we signed up for. But we also want our family to be treated fairly as well.
And I want to implore people to do their own research and own investigation of the risks and all the sacrifices that we make as individuals come out here and do this job. It's easy for us to get up here and lament all the atrocities that we see, which is real. We're no different than police officers. We're first responders. We're emergency responders. We go out and meet people at their worst, and we're there to help. And that's what people need to understand.
Get another one.
All right, we're out on the picket line the first day of the strike here at Children's Services, talking with the union representative. What's your name, sir?
Eric Kantak.
And you guys are on strike for the first day. What are the main issues facing the workers here?
Wages.
Wages?
Yes.
I understand they offered, there's another bargaining unit, and they gave them 6%, and they're only offering you 3%?
Yes.
Why do you think that is?
Well, their claim is that they want to wait until our main contract is up for negotiations. But our issue with them is that when we negotiated this current contract, they insisted on a wage reopener. And the reason for the wage reopener was that they didn't want to give us something they couldn't give the larger bargaining unit. We're a small bargaining unit. We have about 270 members. And the other bargaining unit has probably close to 800 to 1,000. And they negotiated with them first, and over the last, 9 years, we've always had to accept whatever they got as a wage increase. And this time they got a very good wage increase, which they deserved, and we're asking for something similar. And 3% is not similar.
And it's half.
Right. And they also got a $500 sign-on bonus. So they got 6% with a $500 sign-on bonus, and we're like, hey, well, let's start out with that, and then we'll talk about where we can go, But they're not willing to budge, and they're locked down and they refuse to do anything. I think it's more along the line that they want to, take on the small unit because we don't have probably the political clout that the other ones have. But we're going to stand strong because we feel we deserve the wages. We went to fact finding. The fact finder looked at our charts and areas in the community, how much other children's services are being paid, and the fact finder came out with a 4% general increase and a 2% merit increase for this year. And he extended the pay band so that we would get a full 6% increase. So a third-party fact finder came in from the state and agreed with the union that we deserve this.
So, do most of the people in your bargaining unit are caseworkers?
The majority of them are caseworkers. We're child protection.
Have you had any indication from the county commissioners that they might be sympathetic to your plight?
No, because they're the ones controlling this. And they've really stooped to some very low standards to break this strike. They've canceled all our long-term. We have payroll deductions like dental and eye and short-term disability. The taxpayers pay nothing into that. The county just finds, Superior Dental is who we work through, and we pay, in a group plan to Superior Dental. The county doesn't add any money to that. Last night they canceled all of it. And they canceled our life insurance policy. The main reason they did that was they know that they have several workers who have some, I hate to say it, life-threatening health issues. And, that was a wedge to try to get them to cross the picket line. They're offering members more money. They're offering them a free lunch if they show up. I mean, they've done all kinds of things to break this bargaining unit. And as you can see, we're united, and we're not falling for that. I mean, it's very hurtful what's gone on from the county.
That's amazing. The county is thought of really as a fairly progressive institution here, at least the elected people.
It's a Democratic county. It's all Dems.
Okay.
And this is how we're being treated by 3 Democratic County Commissioners. They are doing everything they can to break this union.
So they knew that their offer was unacceptable. They rejected the fact-finding report that found in your favor. And so they basically put you in no situation other than to strike.
And we actually, after they voted down the fact finder's report, we could have at that time filed for a 10-day strike notice. We waited a week. We asked them to come back to the table, and they came back to the table, and they gave us an offer. Before, it was only 2%. They came back, and they say, we're offering them a 3% increase. But it's not a whole 3% increase because it's only half of the actual time that we would be getting an increase.
We're getting support from the street as people drive by. Must be a Teamster truck driver.
It's not a whole 3%, and a lot of our members would only get a lump sum.
Okay.
So it's not really a offer anywhere that we would accept. And they
knew that, right?
They knew that, yes. Because our increases are from April 1 to April 1. And they're saying, we're not even going to offer you an increase until July 1st now. So they're not even willing to backdate whatever they're offering us.
So have you been working on the old contract up till today then?
Yes.
They're not changing the health care package in a way that's forcing you to go on strike.
Well, one of the reasons we feel we need a pay increase is last year, when we negotiated this contract, they told us that the health insurance would be a marginal increase.
Okay.
And last year, it went up almost $300 for every employee. I mean, for families, it went up to almost $300. I mean, it went up almost 150%. And that happened to all the county employees. everyone thought that we had a stable plan for health insurance, and then out of the blue last year they blew it out of proportion.
So was that the health insurance company, and who is it with?
They're self-insured here.
Okay, so it's a county.
Right, it's a self-insured county plan. And we don't have like a premium plan. What we have here is a catastrophic plan. It's basically $10,000 out of pocket for you're responsible for the first $10,000.
Yeah, that's amazing. They did that to the Wright State strikers. They did that to RTA. The teachers had the health care is a major underlying issue in a lot of these strikes and disputes.
Right.
In which increasingly,
so
we don't have adequate health insurance for even people with good insurance policies.
So our pay went down because we're paying out more in our benefits. So our take-home pay is less last year. So that's why this year we feel this is our makeup year. And that's what the other bargaining units, in my opinion, was their rationale for going for such increases is because of the health care rise last year. In 18, what they did to us in 18 for health insurance is one of the reasons that all these people are out here. They need a pay increase to help cover what it went up last year.
So, okay, so it is directly related to health care
Certainly.
then. Well, this is your first day on strike. Have you got any you're getting a lot of support as people drive by here. People are honking and waving. What's your sense on how this is going to develop over the next week?
This is my concern. We're child protection, and we have kids out there on safety plans. We have kids in foster homes. We have kids that are AWOL. We have teenagers that we need to be checking on because they may be AWOL from placements. None of that's going to happen. They do not have the staff. That entire parking lot over there should be packed with cars, and it's not. And they don't have the casework staff trained to go out and do it. Mr. Kohlberg, our county administrator, at first when we started talking about this, he said that there would be full services. Nothing would go to way. But now he's saying it's, just mainly, crisis services are available. Yeah, they can do that, but they're not going to be able to actually be out there checking on kids and making sure they're safe.
So this is a real crisis for the county, not just for the workers here.
It's a crisis for the families in Montgomery County. We have kids out there that we need to be checking on, and that we need to be doing our home visits. We need to be making referrals. We need to be making sure that the families are following up with issues of mental health, substance abuse. I mean, everyone knows how the opioid problem has hit this community. I mean, we have a lot of families out there that are very marginal and need our support so they can keep their children in their homes, and that's why we have safety plans. But if we're not going to be out there, then those marginal homes are going to get worse.
All right, that was Eric from the Children's Services Union over at the county there. And we're going to have some testimony, first I think from myself at the County Commission meeting the week before, and we have a union representative that was also at the county meeting. If you have a chance, call your county commissioners and let them know that they need to do right by these workers. Thanks for having me. I'm here to talk about the Children's Services strike and contract. This is the 100th anniversary of the right of women to vote. They won the right to vote 100 years ago. Mm-hmm. It was very related to the strike at Children's Services. The majority of the clients there are women and their children. The majority of the workers there are women. And even though it was 100 years ago, we're still, women don't have equal pay. They're victims, the why we have a Children's Services is domestic violence and poverty. And women and children are the biggest group of people that get affected by that. And we're very concerned. I speak on behalf of the Miami Valley Full Employment Council and DSA, Democratic Socialists of America. There's a number of groups. We're interested that you have to resolve this situation in a way that brings them together. They feel, I was out on the picket line with them, like they sort of got pushed to the side and are being mistreated here. And we feel that it's very important in this climate, you know. Our country is on a fork in the road here. And the White House and the extreme right wing is leading us off the cliff. And we need to unite with workers and women and say that, look, we're not going to have fake unity where the workers here in Montgomery County get the short end of the stick, and then you expect them to come and fight the establishment and the people who are wrecking our country. And we need to mend that bridge and make up with them and work it out. We know that you're capable of doing that and have that in your heart. Mm-hmm. And we're sure that you can resolve this, but you need to mend that bridge. Okay? So.
Okay.
Thank you.
We don't disagree with you on that, about mending a bridge. I would disagree, though, when you said we're treating them poorly. You know, this is something that really hurts us, and because we value our caseworkers so much. The work that they do is incredible. And so we can't really discuss it, but we're working towards getting this done, and hopefully it'll be a win-win for everybody.
Sure, I'm just saying their perception.
I understand. We've heard it too. We've heard it, yeah.
Like I
But
say,
thank you.
My name is Matt Clark. My address is 318 Signal Fire Drive in Dayton, Ohio. The reason I'm coming to talk to you today is about the recent labor dispute that's been going on between Professional Guild of Ohio and Child Protective Service workers. Just to tell you about myself, I've worked in some capacity full-time as a labor representative, as a union representative, whether as a steward, chief steward, and now as a full-time staff representative with the IUECWA. We're headquartered here in Dayton, Ohio. I'm also a member of the Dayton Miami Valley DSA, and I'm also a member of Local 755 of IUECWA here in Dayton, Ohio, located right over here on Jefferson Street. Mm-hmm. So I've been around labor in some capacity, I said like that, working for 15 years, but I've really been around labor and the labor movement my entire life. My father, James Clark, just recently retired. He was the president of IUECWA, and one early memory I have as a very young boy was that my father would tell me about the air traffic controllers. Mm. And for those of you that don't know the story of the air traffic controllers in the United States, the Air Traffic Controllers Union, back in 1981, the air traffic controllers went on strike. And at the time, Ronald Reagan took it upon himself in 1981 to break that strike. He went out, he told the workers, get back to work in 48 hours or I'm firing the whole lot of you. I'm paraphrasing there, but that's what happened. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I was a boy, my dad would tell me that that was a watershed moment in the labor movement in the United States. Because after that happened, it showed that the government would interject itself into labor disputes and strong-arm workers out of, frankly, their collective bargaining rights. And the reason I bring that up is I want to flash forward a little bit now to 2019. And the Child Protective Services workers here in Montgomery County, who, by the way, I don't think anybody in this room would dispute the importance of their jobs. Frankly, the danger that they put themselves in day and day out on those jobs, protecting one of our most precious resources, our children. And they entered into bargaining, and it didn't work out. Long story short, that happens. I personally oversee over 30 labor contracts in the tri-state area. Collective bargaining is a difficult process. It never means that either side necessarily gets everything they want. That's what happens. But at the end of the day, and a very important part of workers' rights in this country is the right to strike. Mm-hmm. Is the right to go out and strike if they cannot get an agreement with their employer. And there's a risk for both parties there. There's a risk for those employees too, because they're going to lose pay. They're putting their livelihoods in danger by going out there. It's not a flippant thing. It's a difficult decision for them to make. So when these workers went out on strike with the PGO here and went on strike against the county, I was there when they went out on strike in July, and I was out there on that strike line. It was a great strike line with tons of workers. I was very impressed. So I was very distraught when, roughly just a couple hours into that, we were approached by sheriff deputies and told, here's an injunction. The county has filed an injunction against you for 72 hours. Go back to work. And for the rest of you, get off this public property, I want to note, public property within 30 minutes. Now, I may not be a PGO person, but I protested that there, saying you cannot make us stop protesting on public property. I was approached by a sheriff's deputy, Montgomery County Sheriff's deputy, and told that I was going to be arrested for disorderly conduct for standing on a sidewalk. Now, the reason I bring all this stuff up, I realize that bargaining is ongoing. I also realize that the county, unfortunately I heard that name brought up here earlier, I realize you've employed the services of Taft, which quite frankly have a renowned name for anti-union activity and busting unions in this area and others. You have used the sources of Taft to file another injunction to stall this strike out for another 60 days. You have used that to go to the State Employment Relations Board and claim that it is a clear and present danger to the county. The reason I say all this is, and my time is almost up here, you know, I have a lot of respect for the people up here on this stand. And you know, I know I've been there when many of you have been in our labor rallies and our meetings. I've gone out and personally knocked on doors. I personally asked my members to reach in their pockets to donate money to our commissioners to keep them on this board. But I want you to know that what has happened here, breaking a strike, the labor community in Dayton and elsewhere in Montgomery County is watching you. And we're watching you. And we're going to remember that when election comes. We'll still be knocking on doors, but it may not be for the three of you. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yes, that's a union brother from the IUE and also from the DSA here. And put it right on the line, you know, the community elected these people, and they're doing anti-union work. They're not being, you know, they're not negotiating and from what the union says down there in good faith. And they certainly need to come the extra yard to make the deal to avert another strike there. We're going to sort of switch gears, but we'll talk a little bit about children's services and what's going on. We have two great guests here with us tonight, Reverend Donna Moore and Abdullah Shakir with the Poor People's Campaign and a number of other organizations. And welcome to Citizen Impact.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Now, we've been having a series of meetings about the Poor People's Campaign. Donna, would you tell us a little bit about the Poor People's Campaign and Reverend Barbara and what you know about it and stuff and how you're involved?
Sure. I think I first became aware watching something on TV where Reverend Barber was being interviewed, and I was very taken with him. And I've spent some time reading and learning, and then became aware that there's an effort to start a chapter of the Poor People's Campaign here in Dayton. And that's quite exciting to me. I think it's important. And I know that there are vast numbers of poor people who don't get represented, and their concerns are overrun by people with a lot of money. They have control of the State House and the Congress, and we got to do something about that. I'm aware very specifically here in Dayton of efforts with poor people after the tornadoes came through. I got personally involved in efforts to help tornado survivors. My daughter has been a volunteer leading survivor volunteer efforts out of Shiloh Church. And what we've come to know, and we know this theoretically, all the disaster specialists will say that the poorest people in any disaster are hurt the hardest. And what we're seeing is that that's very true. Now here in Dayton, we're 3 months out, and there are still people couch surfing. We ran across a woman 2 days ago who is staying in a house with no power, no water, and she's being beaten up by her boyfriend. And there are efforts right now to contact Adult Protective Services, to contact the Center for Abuse, and to get her sheltered. We have been serving a woman who was paying out of her own Social Security money to stay in a hotel when her apartment was flattened. She didn't know there were any kind of services anywhere, and she has some very serious dementia going on. And we've finally been able to get help to keep her in a hotel. We've finally gotten her an apartment just the other day. But we're finding these people and focusing on those with really special needs who are not able to maneuver the bureaucracy of FEMA and CAP and Catholic Social Services. They're all there to help, but if you can't figure out how to do it, then you're just out of the ball game. And there are a lot of people in that. I want to make a special announcement that FEMA services are only available here until the 30th of August. They will be out
That's Friday.
out of Children's Hospital, but also available online or by phone until September the 3rd. Now, even if you think you've been denied, you've got a denial letter, you need to read all the way to the bottom of that letter to see why. And there are legal services through ABLE. They're out at the farmers market on the corner of Philadelphia and Main Street North every Saturday to help you. Bring that FEMA letter, bring your concerns. They will help you. And you've got to get registered by the 3rd of September. That buys you 60 more days to deal with appeals, to get, and it's the poorest people, those who were flattened out of apartments along Riverside Drive or in Trotwood. There's $2,800 is the average payout from FEMA, but there are maybe only a quarter of the people eligible have actually registered for that. They've gone to live in, they can't even be found. So if you know somebody, it's very important that they get registered, and then their time extends for 60 days.
Okay, all right. Well, that's, you know, the big tragedy that has happened here as far as the number of people have been affected. You know, it seems like, why is there any deadline? You know, if you were affected, there should be, you know, you should, and even though it's been a little while, it hasn't been that long since the tornado blew through here and just disrupted the whole northern part of Montgomery County. Abdul, you've been involved in a bunch of stuff over the years and worked here, and you've actually been on our show in the past. Mm-hmm. We welcome you back. But we worked at Community Action, and you do a number of things in the community. Sort of, what's your take on the current situation, and what do you feel is the priority in dealing with things?
Well, we would like to talk a little bit about Premier Health, the hospital first, which is over on Salem Avenue and Philadelphia Drive. I helped build that hospital, and it's a shame that the one of the parts of the hospital, which was built in 2011, that was tore down first. That was the first part they tore down. And so, I mean, for that part to be tore down, that new part first, you know, we didn't want to see any of it tore down, but it just shows that, you know, that doesn't matter when it was built, their intentions was to tear it down, and that's what they did. But my question is that Miami Valley over there, which is Good Samaritan, they had a helicopter landing. It was only 2 in Dayton, and one at Miami Valley, right there on Main Street, and then the one on Salem Avenue. Why would they tear that part down and so it only be one helicopter landing? That helicopter landing is good for people with emergencies when they go to the highways and different places. They have to bring you in. The closest hospital should be, you know, in that area where, you know, the accident happened. So I didn't like that. Then another thing about the hospital, that it costs millions of dollars to tear down. and we found out that they used mostly their non-union people in Cincinnati and came up here to Dayton to work. And they hired some in Dayton, but not to the capacity where it would really be a big help to the people in the community. So we see that when that site is actually tore down, that's going to be a big, big hole. And you know, when the buildings are tall like that one, and you had winter and snow and stuff and winds and stuff, those buildings help block a lot of that stuff coming in on, you know. So that's going to be a big hole there. So have you thought about, you know, what's going to really happen when the weather really gets bad? And that's a big, vast hole right there. So we would like to see another hospital, some type of hospital. You don't have to be as big, but some type of hospital is going to help the people on the west side. Another thing about the west side, there's only one main grocery store, which is Kroger's on Siebenthaler. We had 3. Now there's only one. The one
they just announced they're going to close another one in Trotwood.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, it's like the west side, the people are hurting. And you know, when we're talking about the poor people, there's never hardly everything talked about poor people. It's always the middle class.
Yeah.
It's not, you know, I'm in the middle class, but it's still the same time, I want to see the poor people to have something too. And I think our congressmen, people need to write to their congressmen and tell them more needs to be talked about the poor people. Yes. What's happening with the poor people, yes, especially the west side. West side of Dayton is devastated, you know, and we have hardly anything over there. We got plenty of liquor stores, wine stores, and stuff like that. So that's one of the things that I'm working with that community, which is LEAD and CCC. And so we're trying to do all that we can to try to bring about some type of help in that area. We don't know what Premier is planning on doing there, but we do know we've had people to come out and they're very upset what's going on over in that neighborhood over there.
Sure. Well, you know, Donna, you were involved. I was involved in a coalition, and it's ongoing.
Yes.
That they haven't given, you know, Premier Health behind closed doors made this decision to close Good Sam. They didn't ask for input from anybody. They didn't. It was hush hush, and had to talk about it for at least a year to make that decision. Oh, yeah. They made a deal with the Catholic Health Organization that owned the hospital originally. Premier Health absorbed Good Sam, along with Miami Valley, into a conglomerate. I think they have like 9 hospitals, I mean, or something like that. It's a huge number, and they've spent millions and millions of dollars in the suburbs all over the place, and this has happened not only in Dayton, but all over the country, in Cleveland and Harlem, where they're closing inner city hospitals, but they're also closing rural hospitals in low-income communities throughout the country. Yes, that's right. Literally, you know, there were a lot of, you know, there's no place to go in a lot of these small communities. You know, you got to go 40, 50 miles to get to the next medical facility now, and so they've closed those rural hospitals. So they're monopolizing health care into you know, what used to be separate hospitals, nonprofit. They're not supposed to be into making money. They're supposed to be there to serve people. And obviously, you know, there was the sisters that put Good Sam there in the first place knew that there were going to be people there that needed to be taken care of, and now they say, you know, they're not going to put the service there for anybody.
But the CEO and the heads of that so-called nonprofit are making millions of dollars, and I think that has to come out. There's some tricky definitions of profit going on here, but to me it is important that the Poor People's Campaign and Reverend Barber emphasize that this is a moral campaign. This is about the needed moral revolution in this country. What's going on with health care for poor people is immoral. It's just that clear. I'm a Christian. I know that when Jesus came, the first thing he said was that he has been called because he has been anointed to bring good news to the poor. It's right there in the beginning of Luke for any of you who think that you are Christian. Bringing good news to the poor, bringing help to those who are sick is our first responsibility. And that is what the Poor People's Campaign is about. Whether it's Premier Hospital or tornado victims or people who need food, who are hungry, who have to work 3 jobs and still can't pay the rent. Those are the people that I'm concerned about, that Poor People's Campaign is concerned about. And for here in Dayton, we'll be looking at what are the local issues here and how those big things are found right here in Dayton, and we're going to be raising a fuss about it.
Absolutely. Now they, we had the Children's Services strike video here just now, and they're working class. The caseworkers there, the teachers at Wright State are middle class. You would assume, if you're teaching college, you should be able to make, But of course, these days they have adjuncts and part-time faculty that don't make any real money.
No.
But for the full-time faculty and for a full-time caseworker, they make halfway decent money, somewhat, though not necessarily enough. But their health care, they have insurance, but you heard in the video, they have a $10,000 deductible.
It's ridiculous.
$10,000 deductible. So you got Premier Health closing the hospital on one hand that affects poor people, but it also affects, African American minorities, but it also affected the middle class. There's a lot of middle class that live north of town that relied on that hospital. Mm-hmm. And it hurts, working people, it hurts everybody that lives around here. If you're, you could be out living in the suburbs around, Clayton in a nice home there, and if you're having a heart attack, which somebody did, and you have to run all the way to Grandview or Miami Valley, you may not make it all the way. And where if you got to Good Sam here, you would have got here an extra 5-10 minutes, and you would have had a better chance. So they're cutting people at both ends. They're saying, oh, you can pay $10,000 deductible, or you can not have a hospital to even go to. And the CEOs, the pharmaceutical companies, the people that provide all that stuff,
That's right.
They're guiding the hospitals. Mm-hmm. The Catholics bought in, and they got 23% of Premier Health
Right.
in exchange for okaying the shutdown and they did this behind closed doors.
That's right.
They were not into telling, oh, we're thinking about closing this hospital. They announced it after they made the decision. It was a done deal, and they shoved it down the throats. And to make sure that it doesn't get changed, they're tearing down the hospital, even though it's not even 10 years old. A building, the millions and millions of dollars, the banks made their money, the construction companies made the money. They can tear it down and they'll build, in the suburbs, and when they're ready, but it is racist and classist.
Absolutely.
That the way they're treating people across the board. And the Full Employment Council, we walked on the picket line about Good Sam. They had the hearings. You participated in the testimony that the Civil Rights Commission was here.
Yes.
And we're waiting on their findings.
There were 120 people that came to give their personal testimony about how they were hurt by the closing of Good Sam.
And and when we had that hearing, and they had the people come down from the government, I was in one particular area, and I brought some information. I brought pictures of when Premier Good Samaritan House first started. And so I started telling them about the different things. And she said, do you have copies of that? And I said, yes. So I actually gave her about a 15-page of when Premier first started, and all through Premier all the way up to 2014. It started back in 1930 something.
Good Sam.
Yes, Good Sam. And so they was amazed, because they said they didn't have this type of information. So I don't know what they did with it, but they do have it because I, produced it to them. And so, it just goes to show you that you have to be able to be, when you see things going on, you got to be able to say, look, I'm going to stand with them, I'm going to stand against them. And so we made a decision that we're going to stand with people that really want something. You know, wanted the hospital to stay and want another hospital there. And so in doing that, when we came out and made the testimonies, like I said, we don't know what the outcome is going to be, but they were surprised. They didn't think they were going to have that many people to come out. And we had over 100-some people, you know, they diligently came out. And we did documentaries, we did tapes and stuff.
Yes.
So they can see all that, you know.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we did what we could do, and we continue to work on the program, you know, just like that. But there's another thing that I want to make a shout out is about the glass place out in Moraine, Faco, and there's a movie out called American Factory.
Yep.
I would like to say people need to watch that movie. Go online, or either if you got Netflix, you can get Netflix, and I just heard from the library they'll have the tape this month. Not this month, the 3rd of September. You can go to the library and get the movie.
Okay, that's great news.
That's, you know, and go and see that movie, and you'll see how they manipulated us, especially our young children. How they, you know, got them to thinking, because 15 years ago, not even that long ago, 10 years ago, we was making $25, $30, $35, and $40 an hour. Well, their concept, when they said 10 years ago, we're gonna bust the unions and bring it down to $10 and no more than $15. And so they got the people's mindset to think that money is okay. But look what you came from. You came from the making the $25 and $30 down to 10 and 15 and think that's okay. That's not okay.
Sure.
But that's what they say. And they studied us, and you'll see in the movie how they said, this is what they want. This is what they'll do. Do this and do that. And so they want us to be like puppets. You know, we're not going to be like that, you know, especially American people. You know, we're here, you know, and we have a dream, and we have an idea of how we want things. This is supposed to be a country where that you can come and really try to bring about your dreams. You know, and another thing, when they say that the borders, and you know, if you want to really see how things really are, this whole creation belongs to God. So when you get saying that you can't go into certain places, I think that I am not against borders, but if you got the money to go somewhere, you should be able to go in that place without it being any restrictions. It shouldn't be saying, well, you can't go there, you know, because we don't want nobody in here.
Sure. Well,
You
it's the divide and conquer.
And that's what it is.
They divide and conquer. They divide white people against black people. They divide, you know, white and black people against brown people. Mexicans coming across the border. It's designed, instead of saying, oh, it's the corporations, it's Premier Health, or it's the people that own GM. I mean, the factory that's at the glass factory was a GM unionized plant, and they made, you know, not initially. I stood in line when they opened the truck plant. The truck plant, they hired people in at $12 an hour for the truck plant for GM, and there were like 2,000 people at the fairgrounds. That's where they had applications. I mean, one place. And they had an open application. They had about 2,000 people come in the wintertime and stood in line to apply there because people were desperate for jobs. Now, they say unemployment is down, and it is, but we still have unemployment. The notion that, you know, that just because it's down that everything is all right, no, it's even at 3.7%, you're talking millions of workers nationwide, and Ohio has higher unemployment than that. And for the people they don't count and people that work part-time, we have all these people who are working low-paying part-time jobs, 30 million people nationwide, but about 5 or 6 million of those need desperately a full-time job. Right. And so we need a jobs program. The Full Employment Council, we call ourselves the Full Employment Council because years after years of unemployment cycles and recessions, you know we need a job for everybody all the time. You know, if you got to close a place down, then you pay them unemployment or you give them a new job. It's either one or the other, not
They need a job.
no safety net.
They need a job that pays enough that you can live decently.
Sure.
That pays a living wage.
A living wage,
And
absolutely.
what we've got now are either full-time jobs or part-time jobs that don't pay a living wage. So people have to, we've got teachers that have to sell their plasma in order to have enough to pay their mortgage or to pay for their health care, let alone folks who are not professional. They don't pay enough for people to work, to live.
And they don't pay enough for them to have good health care or
No.
any kind of good
No.
benefits.
We've had over these years increasing separation between rich and poor, and more and more and more, and are being poorer and poorer. If you're lucky, you're in the middle class. And the 1% are getting richer and richer and richer. There's something wrong in the big picture in this country.
Yeah, and it's all the way capitalism is set up. They say it works, but it works unfairly.
It does.
There is no, when it started out, they had child labor.
Yeah.
They still had slaves. They had 8-year-olds and 7-year-olds. They didn't go to school. They went down to the loom factory or the coal mine and went to work. And if you were on a farm, you helped farm. And some of that's okay. It's okay for teenagers to work. I think teenagers should work. In fact, one of our big problems is we don't have jobs for teenagers. That we have a whole segment of low-income people that don't have access to any jobs for young people the way we did when I was young or when we were young. And that leads to the other problems we have. Mm-hmm. We've seen, a string of shootings here. We've had the mass shootings, but we have individual shootings constantly.
Yes.
And that's indicative of the failure of capitalism too. They don't have. We had the man come and kill his wife at the dollar store right before the mass shooting. Mm-hmm. He had a restraining order on it. Mm-hmm. Well,
what good is it?
If you say you have a restraining order and you don't have a visitation by a police officer or a counselor to make sure you're okay to be, that the restraining order is holding the person back, they're not enforcing them.
Shouldn't have.
And if you don't have enforced restraining order, then you're not dealing with it. And then we had this guy just the other day, has been out of jail 1 week, had a fight with his dad, stabbed his dad, stole the police car, ran it downtown, and killed 2 children. It ran into several other ones in front of the library downtown. Now, when the guy gets out of jail, he needs to have a parole officer checking him out daily. They need to have a job for that guy. They throw these people out of jail. They don't have a place to live. They have no income. And what are they going to do? They're going to go to the House of Bread and get some food or someplace to get some food, but that's all they're going to be able to do. They're going to be sleeping under the bridges, and at a certain point, all these middle-class people who look down on poor people, they'll find themselves in that boat, and they'll find out that you turn to crime real quick if you're homeless. Mm-hmm. Or some people do. Some homeless people are extremely. The best of them would rather freeze than steal.
Mm-hmm. And another thing on the things that's going on, we have to have more people talking about that. You got to, you're going to be in this society, you got to know how it operates. Because I would say 60% of the people, especially in the world, don't know how the government works, the city works, the county works. They're just living, hoping they can make ends meet, and that's not good enough. You got to know how it works, and then you got to know who you need to call, the representatives, the council people, to change these laws. Because the law is made, the law can always be changed. We can't say,
sure, right.
We can't say that, we can't do nothing. You can do something, and that's where the fear comes in, where the devil makes you think that I can't do nothing. But one thing about, more needs to be learned about the devil. When I'm saying about this evilness is that only power that evilness has is a power of suggestion. It suggests to you. When you do it, that's on you. That's not on the devil. That's on you. You know, and I'm a Muslim, and in the Holy Quran it says on the day of judgment, the devil gonna say, hey, don't associate that with me. I know there's a God, but I'm doing what I was supposed to do, and he is doing what he's supposed to do. But see, they don't want to talk about that. They'll just say, well, this is happening, this is happening. We need to know what's really going on. Call it just like it is. If it's Satan at work causing this evilness, well, let's talk about it. You know, don't let it just slide by, you know. So more people, you know, if they start learning and start, and we as adults, we need to teach and tell our children. They need to start reading. Not so much words, but read the creation that you're living in. Look what's happening. Read this creation. And that's what Prophet Muhammad was told when the angel Gabriel came to him and said, read. It said, Iqra. And he said, I can't.
See,
he didn't know words.
There's parallel, you know, between the three Western religions on what's right and wrong.
Yeah.
The Ten Commandments, the three Western religions, Mohammedanism, Christianity, and Judaism, all recognize the Ten Commandments as the framework of the morality of our society.
And recognize as Abraham as the...
Yeah, as the and part of that is, you know, it sets a great framework for right and wrong in which most people sort of live up to it, but we've had this breakdown within the society as a whole and an alienation of our society in which right and wrong, because the leaders they say all the right things, but behind our backs they're doing all the wrong things.
Yeah.
And you know, one of the things is, you know, we've been at war in the Middle East now for a long, long time. The news media doesn't even report on it hardly, yet we're killing people there every day.
Yeah.
We're killing people in the Middle East every day, and the oil companies just keep raking in the money.
And we only count the Americans killed.
Well,
like the Afghans or the Iraqis or others don't count. There's far more of those that have died. Millions have died in what we're up to over there.
and we're not fighting for freedom. The people that we're supporting, the Saudi Arabians, and these basically they're gangsters over there that are running these countries, and they're running it for our benefit.
That's part of why, going back to Poor People's Campaign, that is so important to me. It is a combination of concerns about militarism, about poverty, about health care, about the environment and the environmental degradation that we are seeing. And we are what we call a fusion campaign. We are together, Muslim and Christian, and Jews, and Buddhists, and atheists. We know together what is right and wrong. And if we can't be split apart by the powers of money, if we can be together on what's right and wrong, our fusion will win. If we stick with it, being together, we will win.
Yeah, we call it unity, and we're starting to, we've set up a Poor People's Campaign here. The Full Employment Council's joined, a number of the local leaders here, and we're starting to have, we had a good meeting this week to get out, and there's a number of things that we're talking about doing, but we really need the community to come forward and join us, and people need to, the number of things. If you're here in Dayton and you're paying halfway attention to the things that have happened this summer, you know, between the water main breaking and all the water being out all over the place, that was in the wintertime, but it's still a series of crises here. You can see that the community has come together. We had this, you know, huge rally down at the Oregon District last weekend. And that's a step in the right direction, but people have got to have to be organizers. Everybody's got to become an organizer for your community, your workplace, your friends, your family, and because it's going to take everybody pulling together.
Yes, it is.
And another thing, you know, there's millions of dollars being raised for those people that was affected. And so any of you that knows any of those people, you need to ask them, have you got any money yet? Has any money been given to you? Because my understanding, no money has been given yet.
No, they haven't awarded any.
And so, I mean, but, you know, this going on, you know, some time now, you know, something should be eaten. I know them people need some help. And I know the funeral homes, you know, stuff like that, you know, like they can only do so much. But I know one funeral home was offered, you know, to really help 2 or 3 families that happened to, you know. And so we just have to be diligent and find out, you know, when they say they're going to be raising money for such and such a thing, but then make sure that money is going to those people, you know.
Absolutely.
You know.
Yeah, it's, you know, you got to get money and time. If you got money, that's great, but we need people's energy. Not, you know, we can use their money, but and we'll find out. We'll hear more about how they deal. But I think they'll do just fine. Hopefully, they've raised $2 million, and so that should really help the victims. But it's absolutely tragedy that American society is totally in a big crisis. And the Poor People's Campaign and the Full Employment Council, LEAD, a number of community organizations are pulling together, DSA, the unions. We really need the unions to pull in here too. So support the county workers at Children's Services, Citizen Impact. We're starting a new season here. We're trying to remember exactly how long we've been on the air. A long time, and we appreciate people tuning in, and the crew tonight in the control room there. We appreciate their help. But get involved, become an active citizen. And can we show the video of the Poor People's Campaign in Columbus here? You got that? All right, here we go. I hear it. We'll see you in a few short weeks.
Is that the state meeting? Yeah.